Chapter 2. Part 1. Paying and collecting banker. Role of paying banker. Meaning of paying banker. Paying banker refers to the banker who holds the account of the drawer of the check and make payment if the funds of the customer are sufficient to cover the amount of his check drawn. The role of paying banker are 1. Acting as agent. 5. Scrutinizing the instruments. 3. Checking the endorsements. Owing SM. 14. Presenting the instrument in time. Collecting the proceeds in payee's ALC. 16. Notice of dishonor and returning. 1. Acting as agent. While collecting in instruments, whether for credit to customers ALC or himself, the banker's work as agent of his customer. 2. Scrutinizing the instruments. Name of the holder. Branch name, date, AMT in words and figures. Material alteration very carefully, etc. of any to be checked. 3. Checking the endorsement. Bankers has to check the instrument whether it has been endorsed properly. 4. Presenting the instrument in time. It is the responsibility of the collecting banker to present the instrument in time to the paying banker. Class. Date. Page. 5. Collecting the proceeds in payee's AC. It is the duty of collecting banks to collect and credit the proceeds of the instruments to the proper ALC. 16. Notice of dishonor and returning. If any instrument is dishonored by the paying banker, it should be informed to customer on working day and returned to customer. Rights, precautions while making payment of check. Meaning of paying banker. Paying banker refers to the banker who holds the account of the drawer of the check and make payment, if the funds of the customer are sufficient to cover the ent of his check and drawn, UP 20. The precautions while making payment of check. 1. Open or crossed check. 2. Proper form. 3. Presentment of check. 4. Date of the check. 5. Mutilated check out due. 6. Words and figures. F. Alteration and overriding. 8. Proper endorsements. 19. Sufficiency of funds. 1110. Verification of drawer's signature. Date. Page. 1. Open or crossed check. A banker has to verify whether the check is open or crossed. In case of crossed check, the banker should not pay the cash across the counter. EPSHD paid only to bank. In case of open check, the banker can pay cash across the counter. 2. Proper form. Proper form means that the check should be in the manner prescribed. Under the provisions of the Negotiable Instruments Act, it should not contain any condition. 3. Presentment of check. A banker can honor the checks provided it is presented with that branch of the bank where the drawer has an account. If it is presented at another branch of same bank, it should not be honored. 4. Date of the check. The paying banker has to see the date of the check. It must be properly dated. It should not be stale check. If the banker honors a check before date mentioned, the loses statutory protection. 5. Mutilated checks. A check is said to be mutilated when it has been cut, torn, or when a part of check is missing. Mutilation may be either accidental or intentional, so banker SHD be very careful in this case. 6. Words and figures. The amount of check should be in words and figures, which should agree with each other. When the AMT in words and figures differ, the banker SHD refuse payment. Class. Date. Page. 7. Alterations and overriding. The banker should see whether there is any alteration or overriding on the check. If there is any alteration, it should be confirmed by the drawer by putting full signature. 8. Proper endorsements. Checks must be properly endorsed. In case of bearer check, endorsement is not necessary legally. In case of an order check, endorsement is necessary. A bearer check always remains a bearer check. 9. Sufficiency of funds. The banker should see whether the credit balance in the customer's account is sufficient to pay the check or not. If there is overdraft agreement, he should see that the limit is not exceeded. 10. Verification of drawer's signature. The banker takes specimen signature of his customers at the time of opening the account. He should compare the drawer's signature on the check with the specimen signature of the customer. Date page. Circumstances for dishonor of checks. Meaning of dishonor of check. A check is said to be dishonored when the payment is not made to a customer on its presentment to the banker. The circumstances for dishonor of checks are: 11. Insufficiency of funds Ada Pui. 2. Stab check. 3. Drawer's signature. 14. DLF by the way words and figures. 5. Endorsement. 6. Proper form of the check IA wit. 8. 4. Trust accounts. 8. Joint accounts. 9. Material alterations. 10. Drawn on another brosh. 1. Insufficiency of funds. When the adequate funds are not available in the account of a customer, then the check can be dishonored. Or 2. Stale check. When the check is presented after a period of 3 months from the date it bears, the banker may refuse to make payment. 3. Drawer's signature. Of the signature of the drawer on the check does not tally with the specimen signature, the banker refuse payment. 4. DLF between words and figures, if there is difference. B.W. the ant written in words and figures, the banker may refuse payment. Date page. 5. Endorsement. If the endorsement is irregular, the banker may refuse to make payment on that check. 16. Proper form of the check. If the check is not in the proper form I.L. in accordance with the provisions of the Negotiable Instruments Act and conditions, the banker refuse payment. 7. Trust accounts. If the banker feels any suspicious that the trustee wants to use the amount of check for his personal use, banker may refuse payment. 8. Joint accounts. The banker can refuse to make payment on the check if it is not signed by all the joint account holders. 9. Material alterations. When there is any material alterations, like overwriting, on check, the banker may refuse payment. 10. Drawn on another branch. If the check is presented at another branch of the same bank, if SHD not be honored to make payment. Date page. Types of dishonor of check. Meaning of dishonor of check. Dishonor of check can be divided into 2 categories, i.e. dishonor of check, rightful dishonor, wrongful dishonor. Soda wa si. At. Rightful dishonor. Dishonor of check by the drawee banker for any of the reasons specified or for other rightful reason. In this case there is no remedy available against the banker, but the holder in due course, payee, has remedy both civil and criminal against the drawer led to sell. 5. Wrongful dishonor. Dishonor of check by the banker due to negligence, carelessness by its employees. The drawer may bring an action against the bank for losses suffered by him. The payee has no action against the basker in this case. Page. Duties of paying banker. Meaning of paying banker holds. The paying banker refers to a banker who accounted the drawer of the check and make payment, if the funds of the customer are sufficient to cover the AMT of his check drawn. The duties of paying banker are: 1. Signature. 2. Active account. 3. Sufficient funds. 4. Checks drawn on branch. Weed. 5. Presentation within validity. 6. Must be valid instrument. 1. Signature. The paying banker has to verify whether the signature on the check is done by the account holder or not. Only then the check is considered valid. If signature is fake, the paying banker can take strict action against it. WONONYM ADVO. 2. Active account. The paying banker has to verify that the account holder's name written on the check is still valid. AD means his AC must be active of not active AC. The transaction CA cannot be processed. 3. Sufficient funds. The AMT written on the check must be available in the account holder's ALC. If the AMT fire isn't available, then the paying banker can stop the transaction. Date page. Shall honor only those checks which are 4. Checks drawn on branch. The paying banker. Drawn against the account maintained at a branch where the chokes are presented. 5. Presentation within validity needed. The paying banker is legally bound to pay only such checks which are presented to him for payment within a reachable time. Reasonable time is 6 months and from the date of issue of the check. Unding. 6. Must be valid instrument. Section 5 and 6 of the N.2 Act provide that the banker should examine the contents of the check to ensure that it is perfectly a valid instrument containing an unconditional order to pay a certain sum of money. Hope to page. Statutory protection for paying banker. The payment must be made to the right person and the banker must get order from his customer to debit his account. The banker might not be able to make detailed inquiries before making the payment. Thus, the Act provides him some legal protection if the banker fulfills the obligations laid down by the Act. Above, the paying banker should take the following protection in order to protect himself and while making payment of his customers' checks. Order 11. Protection regarding the check. 2. Protection in case of beater check. 13. Protection in case of crossed checks. 4. Protection in case of obliterated checks. 5. Protection in case of draft. 6. Protection in case of payment of check by mistake. Statutory protection for paying banker. Date. Poj. Consequences of wrongful dishonor of checks. Wrongful meaning of dishonor of checks. Dishonor of check by the banker due to negligence, carelessness by its employees are called by wrongful dishonor of checks. In this case, the drawer may bring an action against the bank for losses suffered by drawer. The consequences of wrongful dishonor of checks are: the damages that the banker has to pay will be more in case of wrongful dishonor of checks of the trader, customer. The amount of damages claimed by the customer need not depend on the amount of check. It means the smaller is the AMT of the check dishonored, the greater will be the amount of damages. 3. The customer can declare substantial general any damages without having monetary loss. 9. In case of non-trader customer, the damage will be Horning L. 6. The particular damages are awarded for the financial loss incurred by the customer as a consequence of wrongful dishonor. Loss must be proved by the customer. Chapter 2. Collecting Banker. Part 2. Duties of Collecting Banker. Meaning of Collecting Banker. The collecting banker is the banker who collects checks drawn upon other banker and on customers. It is called the collecting banker as by behalf of his undertake the work of collection of checks. The duties of collecting banker are: 1. Exercise reasonable care and diligence in his collection of work. 2. Present the check for collection without any delay. 3. Notice to customer in case of dissever of a check. 14. Present the bill for payment. 5. Protest and note a forgone bill for non-acceptance. 4. Exercise reasonable care and diligence in his collection of works. When a banker collects a check for a customer, he acts only as agent of the customer. As an agent he should take care when presenting a check or bill for a payment. 2. Present the check for collection without any delay. If there is any delay in process and presentment, the customer may suffer losses due to insolvency of the funds in the account. In such cases, the banker should bear the losses. 3. Notice to customer in the case of dishonor of a check. If the check he collects has been idishonoved, he should inform his customer without any delay. The Negotiable Instruments Act has prescribed a reasonable time for giving the notice. Fail means bear loss. 4. Present the bill for payment. The banker should present bills for payment in proper time and at proper place. If he fails to do so, and if any loss occurs to the customer, then the banker will be liable. 5. Protest and note a foreign bill for non-acceptance. In case of dishonor of a bill by non-acceptance, non-payment, it is the duty of the collecting banker to inform the customer immediately, and generally when he returns the bill to the customer. 5. Statutory protection for collecting banker. Meaning of page collecting banker. The collecting banker is the banker who connects checks drawn upon other banker, and on customers. He is called the collecting banker as he behalf of his undertakes the work of collection of checks. The statutory protection for collecting banker are 1. Good faith and without negligence. 12. Collection for a customer. 3. Acts as an agent for crossed checks. 1. Good faith and without negligence. Good faith means honestly and negligence means failure to exercise reasonable care. Statutory protection is available to a collecting banker when he receives payment in good faith without negligence. 2. Collection for a customer. Statutory protection is available to a collecting banker if he collects on behalf of his customer only. If he collects for a stranger or non-customer, he does not get such protection. 3. Acts as an agent. A collecting banker must act as agent of the customer in order to get protection. He must receive the payment as an agent of the customer and not as a holder under independent title. Page 4. Crossed checks. Statutory protection is avalon only in case of crossed checks. It is not available in case of uncrossed or open checks because there is no need to collect the checks through a banker. Checks must be crossed prior to their presentment to the collecting bank. Collecting banker is holder for value. Meaning, a collecting banker becomes a holder for valve if he has paid the valve of the check to the customer before the check is actually collected. In other words, a collecting banker becomes a holder for value when he collects his customer's check for himself and not for the customer. Circumstances under which a collecting banker becomes a holder for value. 11. By giving cash over the counter for the check at the time it is deposited. 2. By crediting the amount of the check to the customer's account before the check is actually collected from the paying banker and allows him to draw. 3. By lending further and on the strength of the check. 4. By paying the AMT of the check or part of it in cash, credited the AMT into the customer's account before it is cleared. 5. By accepting the check in avowed reduction of an existing overdraft. Read me note. Page. Precautions to be taken by collecting banker. As a holder for value. 1. The banker must see worthiness of the customer while acting as holder for value. 2. The customer SHD be loyal and has good relationship with the banker, then he can credit the check AMT before it is actually collected. 3. Collecting banker should ensure that his cost hour Is true owner of the check to avoid risk. Conform title of check. 4. Collecting banker should examine the state of check and essential contents of the check to avoid dishonor of the check. 5. 6. Collecting banker should advise to repay money for damage caused by the dishonor of the check. The banker should collect amount from the paying banker within stipulated time or as soon as possible. Date, page, holder in due course. Meaning, holder in due course is a person who takes a negotiable instrument for the value receivable by him in good faith and foughten due care and caution while taking such instrument, and he had no reason to believe any defect existed in the title of the person from whom he derived title possession of the instrument. A person claimed to be a holder in due course should satisfy the following conditions. 1. He must acquire the instrument for a consideration. 2. The instrument acquired SHDB before it is matured for payment. 3. It is most important that the holder in the course had no reason to believe that any defective existed in the title of a person. 4. A person accepting an incomplete instrument cannot be a holder in due course. 5. The instrument should be complete and regular while taking its possession. 6. A person cannot be a holder in ove course under forged endorsement. 8.